Welcome to the lecture series on employee relations and labor laws. I am Dr. KOKILA SAXENA from JSS Academy of Technical Education, Noida. Today we will discuss about the Trade Unions Act 1926. Basically, when we talk about industrial relations, trade unions or workmen, they are the backbone of any organization. So, to regulate all the rules and regulations and to regulate the trade unions and to address the problems of trade unions, this act has been enacted. Now, this act may be called as the Trade Unions Act 1926, which extends to whole of India, and it shall come into force on the such date as the central government may by notification in the official gazette appoint. Now, we will discuss about various definition part of this act. Now, first is executive. Executive means the body by whatever name called to which the management of the affairs of a trade union is entrusted. Now, next is office bearer. In the case of a trade union, includes any member of the executive thereof, but does not include an auditor. All the people from workmen who are holding various posts in trade union, they are office bearers of the trade union who take care of all the functions of the trade unions. Now, registered office means that office of a trade union which is registered under this act as the head office thereof. Registered trade union means a trade union registered under the Trade Unions Act 1926. So, all trade unions who all are registered under this act, they are registered trade unions. Now, next is registrar. So, basically registrar means a registrar of trade unions appointed by the appropriate government under section 3 and includes any additional or deputy registrar of trade unions. And in relation to any other trade union, the registrar appointed by the state in which the head or registered office, as the case may be, of the trade union is situated. Now, comes the trade dispute. Basically, when we talk about any industrial dispute or trade dispute, this is the basic idea for forming trade unions to set all the trade disputes in a proper manner. So, trade dispute means any dispute between employers and workmen, between workmen and between employer, which is connected with the employment or non-employment or the terms of employment or the conditions of labor of any person. These all will be included under trade disputes, conditions of labor or of any person. Now, next is workmen. Workmen means all persons employed in trade or industry, whether or not in the employment of the employer with whom the trade dispute arises. Now, comes next is trade union. Trade union means any combination, whether temporary or permanent, formed primarily for the purpose for regulating the relations between workmen and employers, or between workmen and workmen, or between employers and employers, or for imposing restrictive conditions on the conduct of any trade or business, and includes any federation of two or more trade unions. The act also provides that any agreement between partners as to their own business, any agreement between an employer and those employed by him as to such employment, or any agreement in consideration of the sale of the goodwill of the business or of instruction in any profession, trade or handicraft. Now, comes various provisions under Trade Unions Act. Basically, we will start with the registration of trade union. So, for registration to regulate or to get all the rights of workmen get exercised within the organization, it is very important for a trade union to get registered under the registrars of Trade Union Act. So, first of all, we will discuss about the appointment of registrars. The appropriate government shall appoint a person to be a registrar of trade unions for each state. The appropriate government may appoint as many additional and deputy registrars of trade unions as it thinks fit for the purpose of exercising and discharging under the superintendence and direction of the registrar such powers and functions of the registrar under this act as may be or by order specify and define the local limits within which any such additional or deputy registrar shall exercise and discharge the powers and functions so specified. So, now comes the mode of registration. So, as we all know, this is given in the Trade Unions Act that any 7 person can any 7 people of trade union can make a trade union. So, any 7 or more members of a trade union may, by subscribing their names to the rules of the trade union and by otherwise complying with the provisions of this act with respect to registration, apply for registration for the trade union under this act. Where an application has been made under subsection 1 for the registration of a trade union, such application shall not be deemed to have become invalid merely by reason of the fact that at any time after the date of the application, but before the registration of the trade union, some of the applicants, but not exceeding half of the total number of the persons who made the application, have ceased to be members of the trade union or have given notice in writing to the registrar disassociating themselves from the application. Now, if that means once application for registration has been made to the registrar, it is immaterial that people who have applied for the registration, they have backed from their decision. Now, comes the application for registration. Every application for registration of a trade union shall be made to the registrar and shall be accompanied by a copy of the rules of the trade union and a statement of the following particulars, namely basically as and when any 7 members, 7 or more members, they want to get their trade union registered, they have to fill certain requirements of the act. And they have to fill application for the registration, and they have to serve certain requirements which are as follows: the names, occupations and addresses of the members making the application, the name of the trade union and the address of its head office, the titles, names, ages, addresses and occupations of the office bearers of the trade union. Where a trade union has been in existence for more than 1 year before the making of an application of its registration, there shall be delivered to the registrar together with the application a general statement of the assets and liabilities of the trade union prepared in such form and containing such particulars as may be prescribed. Now, provisions to be contained in the rule of a trade union. A trade union shall not be entitled to registration under this act unless the executive thereof is constituted in accordance with the provisions of the act, and the rules thereof provide the following matters, namely, that means they have to furnish these particulars: the name of the trade union, the whole of the objects for which the trade union has been established, the whole of the purposes for which the general funds of the trade union shall be applicable, all of which purposes shall be purpose to which such funds are lawfully applicable under this act. Then the maintenance of the list of the members of the trade union and adequate facilities for the inspection thereof by the office bearers and members of the trade union. The admission of the ordinary members who shall be persons actually engaged or employed in an industry with which the trade union is connected, and also the admission of the number of honorary or temporary members as required under section 22 to form the executive of the trade union. Also, they have to provide the payment of a subscription by members of the trade union which shall not be less than 25 nai paisa per month per member. Actually, here this is a membership fee which is given by the members of trade union and which is very less. And as we all know that we do have studied various problems related with the associated with trade unions, and this is one of the problem that they are financially not very sound. So, they do not they are not capable of carrying on all their businesses successfully, or all they are not capable of getting all their laws or rules exercisable. The conditions under which any member shall be entitled to any benefit assured by the rules and under which any fine or forfeiture may be imposed on the members. The manner in which the rules shall be amended, varied or rescinded. The manner in which the members of the executive and the office bearers of the trade union shall be appointed and removed. The safe custody of the funds of the trade union and annual audit in such manner as may be prescribed of the accounts thereof, and adequate facilities for the inspection of the account books by the office bearers and members of the trade union, and the manner in which the trade union may be dissolved. So, for registration, any trade union, they have to fulfill all these provisions to get it done. Now, registration of trade union under the Act. The registrar, on being satisfied that the trade union has complied with all the requirements of this Act in regard to registration, shall register the trade union by entering in a register to be maintained in such form as may be prescribed, the particulars relating to the trade union contained in the statement accompanying the application for registration. So, first of all they have to furnish all this information, then they the registrar will cross check all the information provided by the members of the trade union who want to get it registered. Then after cross checked after the cross check by all the information furnished by them by the registrar of the trade union, they will get the certificate of registration. The registrar on registering a trade union under section 8 shall issue a certificate of registration in the prescribed form, which shall be conclusive evidence that the trade union has been duly registered under this Act. Basically, they have to have a certificate of registration to get certain privileges for the trade union, which we will discuss later on. Now comes the provision of cancellation of registration. Basically, when the certificate is taken due to by some mistake or some fraud, right, then in that case registration of trade union will be cancelled. So, a certificate of registration of a trade union may be withdrawn or cancelled by the registrar on the application of the trade union to be verified in such manner as may be prescribed, or if the registrar is satisfied that the certificate has been obtained by fraud or mistake, the trade union has ceased to exist or has willfully and after notice from the registrar contravened any provision of this Act or allowed any rule to continue in force which is inconsistent with any such provision, or has rescinded any rule providing for any matter provision for which is required by section, provided that not less than 2 months previous notice in writing specifying the ground on which it is proposed to withdraw or cancel the certificate shall be given by the registrar to the trade union before the certificate is withdrawn or cancelled, otherwise than on the application of the trade union. Basically, if any information is furnished wrongly, willfully it is wrong, it is made wrong, or certificate has been obtained by fraud or mistake or misrepresentation, then in that case the registrar can cancel the registration of the trade union. So, now objects on which general funds may be spent. Now, in this section it is provided that the general funds of a registered trade union shall not be spent on any other objects than the following, namely, basically all the funds which are available with the trade union, they are audited time to time, and all the objects where this fund can be spent, it is specified in the Act. So, first is the payment of salaries, allowances and expenses of office bearers of the trade union. That means, all the funds with trade unions can be spent on the payment of salaries, allowances and expenses of office bearers of trade union, the payment of expenses for the administration of trade union, including audit of the accounts of the general funds of the trade union, then the prosecution or defense of any legal proceeding to which the trade union or any member thereof is a party, when such prosecution or defense is undertaken for the purpose of securing or protecting any rights of the trade union. Other than all these functions of trade union, the general funds may be spent on the conduct of trade disputes on behalf of the trade union or any member thereof, the compensation of members for loss arising out of the trade disputes, allowances to members or their dependent on account of death, old age, sickness, accidents or unemployment of such members, the issue of or the undertaking of liability under policies of assurance of the lives of members or under policies ensuring members against sickness, accident or employment, the provision of educational, social or religious benefits for members, including a payment of the expense of funeral and religious ceremonies for deceased members or for the dependents of members. Basically, the funds of trade unions can be spent on all these items. So, this is a very important aspect in any trade union. The compensation of members for loss arising out of trade disputes. We have already studied various problems associated with trade unions. Now, one of the problem was the compensation of members for loss arising out of trade disputes. Basically, in previous slides we have studied that members of trade unions, they have to pay a minimum fee to the trade union to get the membership of the trade union, and that amount is very less. Also, workers working with the organization, they do not want to spend even a penny on trade unions. What they think is that it is a misuse of their money, and that money which is hard earned money, right. So, basically what happens is, when they do not want to pay the minimum registration fee to the trade unions, they cannot carry on various activities within the organization, and this is the very important activity of any trade union, that they have to compensate the members in case of trade disputes. If there is any strike due to trade dispute, now in that case, if the trade union is strong enough financially, they can hold on strike for a long, but if trade unions are not very strong financially, then they cannot carry on the trade dispute, or they cannot carry on the strikes for a very long, and they are not able to carry on with the to get exercise their rights in the organization. So, this is very important aspect of the trade unions, and everybody in the trade union, they should understand the importance of paying membership fee within the trade union. So, now rights and privileges of registered trade union, as I had told you that every trade union has to get it registered themselves, and I had told you that they have been given certain rights and privileges if they are registered. So, what are the rights and privileges? First is immunity from criminal conspiracy in trade disputes. Now, no office bearer or member of a registered trade union shall be liable to punishment under subsection 2 of section 120B of the Indian Penal Code 45 of 1860 in respect of any agreement made between the member of the member for the purpose of furthering or any such object of the trade union as is specified in section 15, unless the agreement is an agreement to commit an offence. Basically, all the members of registered trade union, they are immune from criminal conspiracy in trade disputes. But if they are not registered, if the trade union is not registered, this immunity will not be given to the office bearers of the trade union. Now, next is immunity from civil suit in certain cases. No suit or other legal proceedings shall be maintainable in any civil court against any registered trade union or any office bearer or member thereof in respect of any act done in contemplation or furtherance of a trade dispute to which a member of a trade union is a party on the ground only that such act induces some other person to break a contract of employment, or that it is in interference with the trade, business or employment of some other person, or with the right of some other person to dispose of his capital or of his labor as he wills. So, basically the office bearers of registered trade union, they get immunity from criminal conspiracy as well as immunity from civil suit in certain cases. Then enforceability of agreements, notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force, an agreement between the members of the registered trade union shall not be void or voidable merely by reason of the fact that any of the objects of the agreement are in restraint of trade. It has been also provided that nothing in this section shall enable any civil court to entertain any legal proceedings instituted for the express purpose of enforcing or recovering damages for the breach of any agreement concerning the conditions on which any member of a trade union shall or shall not sell their goods, transact business, work or be employed. Now, next is right to inspect books of trade unions. See, as we had seen all these immunities from criminal conspiracy to civil suit, and then enforceability of agreements, and then a right to inspect books of trade union. So, basically the accounts books of a registered trade union and the list of members thereof shall be open to inspection by an office bearer or member of the trade union at such times as may be provided for the rules of the trade union. Means they can all the registered members, they can inspect any books and records of the trade union. Now, rights of minors to membership of trade unions. Basically, this is a question whether the minors in the organization who are working with the organization, will they be the members of trade unions or not. So, any person who has attained the age of 15 years may be a member of a registered trade union subject to any rules of the trade union to the contrary, and may, subject as aforesaid, enjoy all the rights of a member and execute all instruments and give all acquaintances necessary to be executed or given under the rules. Means any person, any workman who has attained the age of 15 years can be a member of registered trade union and can enjoy all the rights of a registered member of a registered trade union. Now, comes the disqualifications of office bearers of trade unions. There are certain cases where the office bearers of trade unions, they can be disqualified on various basis. Now, a person shall be disqualified for being chosen as and for being a member for an executive or any other office bearer of a registered trade union if he has not attained the age of 18 years. Means a person who has attained the age of 15 years can be a member, can be a registered member in a registered trade union, but he cannot be a office bearer. If there is if it is a case that a person less than 18 years of age is office bearer of a registered trade union, he will be disqualified. Next is, he has been convicted by a court in India of any offence involving moral and sentenced to imprisonment unless a period of 5 years has elapsed since his release. Any member of the executive or other office bearer of a registered trade union who before the commencement of Indian Trade Unions Act has been convicted of any offence involving moral turpitude and sentenced to imprisonment. Basically, if any of the office bearer is if he is offended in any moral issues, he will be disqualified. Now, change of name of trade union. Any registered trade union may, with the consent of not less than 2/3 of total number of its members and subject to the provisions of section 25, can change its name. Now, amalgamation of trade unions. Any 2 or more registered trade unions may become amalgamated together as one trade union with or without dissolution or division of the funds of such trade unions, or either or any of them, provided that the vote of at least 1/2 of the members of each or every such trade union entitled to vote are recorded, and that at least 60% of the votes recorded are in favor of the proposal. Notice in writing of every change of name or of every amalgamation signed in the case of a change of name by the secretary and by 7 members of the trade union changing its name, and in the case of an amalgamation shall be sent to the registrar. Now, dissolution of trade unions. When a registered trade union is dissolved, notice of the dissolution signed by 7 members and by secretary of trade union shall within 14 days of the dissolution be sent to the registrar and shall be registered by him if he is satisfied that the dissolution has been effected in accordance with the rules of trade unions. Where the dissolution of registered trade union has been registered and the rules of trade union do not provide for the distribution of funds of the trade union on dissolution, the registrar shall divide the funds amongst the members in such manner as may be prescribed. Now, penalties and procedures. Now, first penalty is failure to submit returns. If default is made on the part of any registered trade union in giving any notice or sending any statement or any other document are required by or under any provision of the act, shall be punishable with fine which may extend to 5 rupee. In the case of a containing default with an additional fine which may extend to 5 rupees for each week after the first during which default continues, but fine shall not exceed 5 rupees. Any person who fulfills who willfully makes or causes to be made any false entry in or any omission from the general statement required by section 28 shall be punishable with fine which may extend to 500 rupees. Now, next offence is supplying false information regarding trade unions. Any person who with intent to deceive gives any member of registered trade union or to any person intending or applying to become a member of such trade union any document purporting to be a copy of the rules of the trade union or of any alterations to the same which he knows or has reason to believe is not correct copy of such rules or alterations are for the time being in force, or any person who with the like intent gives a copy of any rules of any unregistered trade union to any person on the pretense that such rules are the rules of the registered trade union shall be punishable with fine which may extend to 200 rupees. So, today we have discussed various rules and regulations for the registration, mode of registration, application, how applications can be made for the registration and cancellation of registrations, and various rights and privileges availed to the registered trade unions and their office bearers. And we have also discussed about the penalties of the trade unions. So, that is all for today. Thank you.